And yesterday, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst with California Congressman Jimmy Panetta, Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and New Jersey Congressman Donald Norcross met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And back on September 15th, almost a month ago, Nevada Senator and co-chair of the Abraham Accords caucus, Jackie Rosen, put out the press release that reads in part, quote, "The Abraham Accords have transformed the Middle East, opening the door to an unprecedented normalization and cooperation between Israel and Arab nations. As we celebrate 3 years since this historic agreement signing, the United States should continue building on the Accords by ensuring that existing agreements bring tangible benefits for the citizens of those countries, helping advance prospects for peace in the Middle East and between Israelis and Palestinians, and widening the circle of partnership to new countries," end of quote. Now, fast forward to from those 3 weeks ago to now. Israel is at war with Hamas, and those hopes of peace in the region seem dashed. Iowa Senator and co-chair of the Abraham Accords caucus, Senator Joni Ernst, joins me. Good evening, Senator. And as part of the caucus and those hopeful words that you and the caucus put out September 15th, what happened? It went from great hope of peace to now everything's on fire.
Thank you, Greta. This was an incredible delegation, bipartisan, bicameral. We left on this trip to visit many of those Arab nations across the Middle East and Israel to express our support of the Abraham Accords and to further press on a peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel. So we left as a delegation promoting peace, and unfortunately, towards the end of our trip, we were faced with a nation at war. So I do believe that we can continue on this pathway to peace. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and just in the piece before talked about Iran's role in this. What Iran fears the most is peace in the Middle East, and I believe that is why they continue to fund these proxies, these terrorists like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. They're trying to disrupt wherever they can. So we really have to hold Iran accountable.
Let me ask you about that.
And help the Israelis.
Well, let me ask you about that, because there was the Abraham Accords suggestion that Saudi Arabia and Israel would normalize relations, and just back up a few months ago when Iran did with Saudi Arabia, you got that. But now you've got this money. And President Biden says, I know they're going to have some agreement that Qatar won't release it. Is it realistic? I mean, should we be refreezing that money? And should we get tougher with Iran? Because if Iran is the instigator here, unless we take care of the instigator, you're not going to get that peace you're talking about.
Well, hey, I couldn't have said it better myself, Greta. You are spot on. And this administration under President Biden and his leadership has really led the way into all-out appeasement on Iran, which enables them to support these terrorist proxies all around the globe. For heaven's sakes, Hamas gets 93% of their funding directly from Iran. And to the point of sanctions on Iranian oil, you're right. We have seen a significant increase in funding from exported Iranian oil that should have been interdicted by the United States Department of Justice. But this administration, they won't step up to the plate. I don't want to point the finger and say that these are nefarious actions by our own government, but even the Arab nations in the Middle East do not want this nuclear agreement with Iran. They do not want to see Iran funding terrorism in a region when they really need stability to enable prosperity for their citizens. So everything that President Biden and his administration is doing runs counter to what the Abraham Accords is attempting to do.
All right, well, that's Iran. I'm going to take the last word on this, but I read Hamas's charter, and their charter includes, number one, kill the Jews, and number two, we don't want any peaceful agreements. So, I mean, they don't even want to come to the table. So, and I don't know how, and Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map. So I think, at some point we got to, face the music and figure this one out. Senator Joni Ernst, thank you.
Yep.